Welcome to the Half Yard Line. I'm Tim.
And I am Luke.
And Luke, last week we said we had reached the time in the season where your team stops playing and mine keeps playing, and we have now reached the point in the season where mine also stops playing. The Steelers in their last 5 playoff games, which have been over far too many a period of years, like 8 years, to get those 5 playoff games. We have been outscored 118-0 before putting our first points on the board in each of those games.
Not good, that one. Our stats go.
We'll talk more about the Steelers later, but I ribbed you in the intro last week. I felt the need to return the favor with my own team a little bit here.
It's very egalitarian of you, Tim. I can assure you it was not necessary, but I appreciated it nonetheless. And we appreciate you, dear listener, tuning in once again to the Half Yard Line throughout the playoffs. Today, in a shocking break with tradition, we'll actually tell you what we're going to be speaking about before we start speaking about it.
Whoa.
Which is, hey, what wildcard football, super wildcard weekend, whatever the hell you call it.
There was football played.
There was football played. We're going to go game to game. We're going to give you our thoughts, give you some nuggets on what we think is coming up in these divisional round games, which they've yet to rebrand in some sort of like fancy way. It's still just called the divisional round. Right. We have Super Wildcard. Conference Championship is like, whoa, like the championship game. And then there's obviously a Super Bowl, but divisional round primed for a rebrand.
Conference semifinals.
Yeah, something. Give me some juice. Like there's no juice. It's a fun weekend of football. This is, Wildcard weekend is fun. But I think divisional round football is probably the best weekend of football of the whole season. The meaningful, you've had kind of an upset. You've got the scent of the Super Bowl in the nostrils of the remaining 8 NFL teams. I always enjoy watching a divisional round. So it's a momentous occasion. But before that, Tim, we'll celebrate here on the podcast a momentous occasion. As you pointed out before we started recording, this is episode 100 of the Half Yard Line.
100, triple digits. We are old.
We're triple dig. In the UK, if you make it to 100, you get a telegram from what used to be the Queen, but now obviously the Queen is dead. So it's the King. So you get a telegram. I'm not sure whether it's still a telegram in this day and age because I don't think you can get those saying, congratulations on making it to 100 years old. So hopefully, we'll get one in the mail from King Charles, as I know the Americans will love that. Probably more than the British would.
Almost certainly. Not my king.
Yes, the centenary is upon us for the Half Yard Line. So thank you to those people out there. If you've listened to all 100, good on you. And we thank you for your service.
I've listened to all 100, Luke.
Oh, really? I may have. Maybe mid-80s. I don't know.
Okay. Honestly.
I jest. I have listened to every single one.
Have you received a telegram? That's a real question.
No, I haven't. I don't really even know what they are, if I'm completely honest with you.
So I have received a telegram, and it's, the one that I got came on a piece of paper. Like it was delivered telephonically. It seems to be something like a fax.
It's like they send it to a station on a thing,
That's right.
and then they print it out and bring it to you, right?
Bingo. And mine was my wife's uncle elected not to attend our wedding. And in like the attempt to be both formal and I don't know, you could have called, but sent the telegram. But we got a telegram congratulating us.
Wow,
on our nuptials, so. That's
great. Did you get married in the mid 1870s?
Close.
Dearest Tim, stop. The battle continues here in Richmond, Virginia. Stop. Morale in the group remains high. Stop. But that's interesting. You can't get in touch, unfortunately, with the Half Yard Line via Telegram. We didn't ever get that one set up, unfortunately. But you can get in touch with us via the socials at Half Yard Line Pod and halfyardlinepod@gmail.com. Email, the electronic telegram. I don't know. Maybe they should rebrand too. But Tim, that's enough about that. Let's talk about some FUBAR that was played.
Foosball.
I have one quick thing for you before we start. Actually, 2 quick things.
2.
Not official things, but just fun, stuff. We're entering into my favorite time of the year, which is not, I love the off season, the draft. We've spoken about it on many a pod, right? I always enjoy the off season.
Everyone whose team is terrible does.
Every playoff team, they're going to be around for a long time. It's the first weekend where you start hearing it. It's great. Obviously, the Texans won, the Packers won. There was, notable young upstart teams with young upstart quarterbacks. Oh, the Texans are going to be a problem for years. And then obviously
rookie quarterback as good as he is.
you're going to have to worry about this team for the next decade, Tim. And then you watch the Eagles on Monday and you go, maybe you won't.
Or the Jaguars, or
the Titans,
Lawrence.
or anyone since ever. Like, these teams are not going to be around for a long time until they are around for a long time. It just doesn't happen. But I always enjoy that.
I mean, name the last team other than the Patriots that was good for a decade.
Well, I mean, in the recent history,
a whole decade,
Steelers?
10 years. No.
Good.
Not 10 years? No way.
Never had a losing season, Tim. Don't know if you know that.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, you're probably going back to like the 90s Cowboys, or the, actually like contending. And even then,
the dynasties, right? The 4 Super Bowls or the 3 Super Bowls in 5
the Patriots
years,
is never to be repeated. I mean, the closest thing you have right now is the Chiefs, right? 8 straight division titles, playoffs all the time, and now made 3 Super Bowls and all the rest of it. So they're the one you could say, hey, they actually have been around for a long time at the top end.
But even they've got to do it for 2 more years, and we're starting to see some frailties in even that armor.
Yeah, including Patrick Mahomes' helmet, notably. So we'll get to that game in a sec. We'll go chronologically through these games, Tim. Unfortunately, not the most exciting slate of games. I mean, exciting to watch in some cases, but not close. Margins of victory for this wildcard weekend were 31, 19, 16, 1, 14, and 23.
And let me pause you right there, Luke.
Great.
I got to stop you, because we've been talking about it all year, how nobody's good. And we even said, wait till you get to the playoffs, because there's only 2 possibilities. One is going to be the good teams are so much better that it's going to be a walkover, or nobody's any good and it's going to be
blowout city. Yeah. And it has come to pass. We had 6 games, obviously, over super wildcard weekend. In 5 of them, the winner went wire to wire, so they never were trailing. The only team to not trail not win. Yes, yeah. Sorry. Oh no, I'm all over the place. The only team that didn't lose in a wire-to-wire fashion was the Browns, is what I was trying to say. So they're the only team that had a lead and then didn't win. Every other team that had a lead won. In the entire playoffs last year, there were 6.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had 5 wire-to-wire winners in 6 games instead of 6 over the whole playoff bracket, which is what we had last year. Anyway, I struggle so much getting that out. Let's move on to those Browns instead, Tim. Browns at Texans, the first game, the NFL doesn't care slot, 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. What were your takeaways from CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, and the gang putting a hurting on Cleveland?
Well, I have to tell you, Luke, I think, first of all, Joe Flacco came down to earth a little bit. Couple interceptions. The Houston defense has been good, but not otherworldly. On the other hand, the Browns defense has been otherworldly and was not today. So you can chalk it up to the Browns defense didn't show up. You can chalk it up to CJ Stroud's really that good. A lot of different ways to play this one, but two interceptions from Joe Flacco is not going to help you get it done against a team with a quarterback as electric as CJ Stroud. And I just feel like the Browns offense had some comeuppance, but if you'd have told me that Houston Texans were going to put up 45 against this defense, I would have directed you to the rest of the season. Though I found this really interesting, and you'll know why this happened once I get done pointing it out. But the Houston Texans scored 45 points. They only had 274 yards through the air and 76 on the ground. So that's more than Cleveland's been giving up this year, but only by about 60 yards.
Right.
So it wasn't that Cleveland's defense was atrocious. It was that Cleveland's offense kept putting Cleveland's defense in bad positions.
Yeah. The 2 turnovers don't help as well. Obviously, if you throw 2 pick sixes, that's probably going to hurt your cause. But yes, I mean, you're right. The Browns allowing only 164.7 passing yards per game in the regular season. So to eclipse that total by such a wide margin is impressive on its own, let alone the fact that CJ Stroud basically had already done that in the first half. I mean, he had already put up big numbers before we'd even got to 2 quarters played. So certainly a coming out party for him, and a huge feather in the cap for Bobby Slowick, first-year offensive coordinator for the Texans, who's been getting some love about potential head coaching jobs. He's being interviewed by quite a few teams, a hot name. And if you just dice up the best defense in football this year, well, them or the Ravens, but one of the two best in football this year to such a degree with a rookie quarterback without, Tank Dell, who had been one of your, electric options on the outside, and without superstar running backs, without elite protection apart from Tunsil. I mean, it was a really incredibly impressive day. Stroud showing more of what he's shown all year, which is just this poise, this veteran mindset, this kind of mistake-free football, but also attacking, not being afraid of the situation. I thought Slowick put him in great positions to succeed, but Stroud's also continuing to take shots when they're there to be shot, and he's continuing to not do it when it would be the wrong decision. We spoke about Joe Flacco before this game and in the last few weeks of the regular season. There's a really fun story. Like, we wanted Joe Flacco to lead the Browns to a Super Bowl because it would have been the funniest thing ever. A sad time that that's not going to happen for us as a podcast, but he had been turning the ball over a lot. He turned the ball over twice. Both of them went into the end zone, and that was pretty much that. But a couple of other nuggets.
My favorite stat from this game, real quick?
Please.
My favorite stat from this game is that Houston's defense had more pick sixes than Cleveland's defense had quarterback hits, which I think is
that's a good one.
You're talking about the number one defense in football. They have been all over people's quarterbacks all year long, forcing turnovers
potential defensive player of the year in Myles Garrett, right?
And well, I think you mean runner up to TJ Watt, but sure.
Potential, I said. Hence,
one quarterback hit, in the whole game. They've not been close to that number all season. They've been closer to double digits more often. They've been closer to one.
Yeah, and it just meant CJ Stroud couldn't be put on the spot, right? We spoke about in the preview last week. I mean, I certainly did. I said I thought Cleveland was going to win this game by finally making CJ Stroud look uncomfortable, like they did to Brock Purdy, like they've done to a bunch of other quarterbacks.
Didn't happen.
They couldn't get anywhere near him. But Houston, the fifth time to have a rookie head coach and quarterback duo make the playoffs. Only the fifth time, Tim. I don't know if you saw this. Do you know who the others were? They're all very recent.
Yeah, I can do this. So
you're usually good on the old half-yard line impromptu quizzes. So I've got one later for you as well.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, but wait.
All right. So rookie QB, rookie coach.
Just to make the playoffs, not to necessarily go on to, do anything.
Well, I'm rookie quarterbacks I can get. I'm just trying to think of which of them had rookie coaches.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be simpler. All right. So
do you want a year to start you off with, and maybe we can get you rolling?
Was Houston one of them?
No, Houston is not one of them.
Deshaun Watson in Houston?
No.
Okay. All right. Give me a year. Let's see if we can get this started.
2012 would be one. There's one in 2012.
2012.
Who was the first overall pick in 2012?
2012 draft. Oh, it was the first overall pick?
It was also the first overall pick, yes.
Andrew Luck, of course. Yeah,
Andrew Luck. Do you know who the coach was?
Chuck Pagano.
Chuck Pagano. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
the next one is 2009.
Jets. Sanchez and Rex Ryan.
Correct, who went to the championship game. The next one is 2008. And in fact, there's two in 2008.
All right. So this is the one I wasn't sure about. So was it Harbaugh's rookie year when they got Flacco?
It was. Harbaugh and Joe Flacco, 2008, went to the champ game as well.
Another one?
There's another one in 2008.
Draft, the only other good quarterback I can think of from the Flacco draft was Matt Ryan.
It was Matt Ryan. And the coach of the Atlanta Falcons, it's a doozy.
Mike Smith?
Mike Smith. Good job. So, yeah. Good pull. D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud joining that illustrious company. And the nice thing about it is, if you're
I apologize for needing the years, but I feel okay.
That's fine. As we've said at the top of the pod, right? This is the time for, they're going to be around for a long time. I will bet you $1 million. Every single one of those teams, they'll be around for a long time. Of all of those, Harbaugh and Joe Flacco, by far the most successful, of course, with the Super Bowl victory a few years later. Obviously, Joe Flacco didn't go on to become, the great Joe Flacco, as, the endless debates about elite or not. But none of the other... He did, but he didn't become, Peyton Manning. And then, Matt Ryan had a great career. Luck retired. The point being, as we said last week, as we've said over and over on this podcast, it's the number one stupid media narrative. Like, everyone who wins a playoff game who's got a quarterback who's under 25 is going to be good for 10 years, and they're just not. But Houston played very well in this game, give them their due. And the funniest thing about this game by far was, of course, the fact that the Cleveland Browns traded an obnoxious amount of assets to acquire Deshaun Watson from the Texans. And then by the Texans beating them in this game, the Texans improved their own draft pick because they have Cleveland's pick for this year, which is just poetry, true poetry.
In motion. No, 100%.
And I sent it to you via text, Tim, but I'm going to regale the listeners just to give you the full accounting, because we're nearly at the point we can do the full accounting of the Deshaun Watson trade. We've only got a couple of picks left, so maybe we'll see this. But, these huge trades like the Ricky Williams trade or the Herschel Walker trade,
sure.
where you go, look, once you take into account the trading of the picks and who did you pick with the pick that you got for the pick and all the rest of it, like, you end up with a ridiculous amount of players. The Houston Texans acquired 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, as well as, I think, 2/3, if I'm not mistaken. Tim, you maybe can correct me on that, but I believe it was 2/3. Obviously, there's some trading, there's some finagling, there's some whatever. Here's the full list of what they've gotten so far. Will Anderson Jr., pretty damn good. Tank Dell, looked to have been pretty damn good, injured. Kenyon Green, starting offensive lineman. Christian Harris was one of the best players on the field in that game. Damian Pierce, okay, so-so.
Okay.
But a guy who's on your roster who contributes. John Mechie, guy who's now contributing, having, obviously had the unfortunate medical situation to start his career. They've got 2 guys in Thomas Booker, who they waived in final cuts, fine. That was a late round pick. Then they've got 2 rookies from the year just gone in Brandon Hill and Xavier Hutchinson, who are both playing. They're not key cogs, but they were drafted late. They still have a first and a third in this year's draft. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players and a first round pick and a third round pick this year just for Deshaun Watson. That's the full accounting. So maybe they'll move around again. My dream is that you end up with one of these situations where in 2026, because they kept moving back, they end up still having a pick from this trade in like 4 years. I always love those. They're like, and this is the pick that they got for...
Back.
Go for it.
Follow me. They keep moving back, and they end up with like a 2027 fifth, and they use it to trade for Deshaun Watson.
Oh, man. See, who said misery can't be fun, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I love that it obviously Cleveland, it's one of these things. Cleveland made that trade because they believed they had to have a quarterback. They didn't have a quarterback, and they needed one. If they just had a quarterback,
over the hump.
Fine. Put them over, and there's a lot of teams that have done that. The Broncos did it. The Jets did it. Yep. Everybody, we're a quarterback away. We're a quarterback away. And so rarely is that really the case. Now, certainly you have Patrick Mahomes comes in and turns a team into a perennial Super Bowl contender. Not that Kansas City was terrible the year before he was there.
A good team before that.
Peyton Manning did go to the Broncos and push them over the top. Now, some people, everybody rightly says
Drew Brees to the Saints.
Super Bowl. Drew Brees to the Saints, another example. But as many as guys as that was the case, teams often overestimate how much that quarterback's going to help them, because what they don't appreciate is how much the situation that quarterback they're bringing in, his current situation, is driving a lot of his success. And so to see Cleveland overperform with all the other quarterbacks and underperform really with their star at quarterback, and then watch the team that they traded for or traded to a bounty to get him, beat him in the playoffs with their rookie, to me is it's poetic.
Yeah, and I thought I was very impressed. Obviously, the story is really like CJ Stroud, the Texans, and how well they played. And for the Browns, to your point, they overachieved. The defense carried them a long way. Sometimes defenses get tired. Like, that happens. You've been carrying the team all season long. You can't always be put on the spot and always answer the bell. It's just not possible. And it was a great display by the Houston offense. Anything else you want to say about that game, Tim, before we move on to Dolphins?
I got a hot take for you.
Hit me.
My hot take is, and listen, maybe CJ Stroud comes out next week. Maybe he wins the Super Bowl. No rookie quarterback coach combo's ever won the Super Bowl. So, we'll see.
No rookie quarterbacks ever won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's not impossible. But I will tell you that you go out and you put up a performance like that, it is really, really hard to come back the next week and not lay an egg. And it's not because he's not capable. I don't know. I've never been an elite quarterback. I've never gone out and played an amazing game. But apparently it's difficult. And I would guess it has something to do with the mental. Now you've done it. You feel like you got to keep doing it. You know, you're the guy. We've been talking about you being the guy all week. You want to go out there and be the guy. Probably put a different level of pressure on yourself. I can see as much as I'd like Houston to go out there and throw it all over the field and be awesome. We'll see. We will see. My hot take is I think Houston. I think CJ Stroud throws for more interceptions than touchdowns this week.
Wow. Big one. So we'll at the Ravens. It's a tough road to hoe. We'll get to that game at the end of the pod. But yeah, it was a beatdown, and there was another beatdown straight after it in the Freezer Bowl Mark II in Kansas City. The Chiefs really rolling over the Dolphins in a game that promised to kind of be a fun, oh, look, do you remember this game? And it was the cold weather and it's, whatever. It's like a throwback to the old NFL films kind of stuff. And it just wasn't a particularly good game.
Because everyone else agrees football should be played inside.
I like it. Anyway, point being, whatever you expected from this game, I mean, I think most people had the Chiefs to win this game. The Dolphins, you can blame the weather, you can blame the injuries, whatever you want to attribute it, the main cause to. They really didn't put up much of a fight in this game. Down the stretch, they've really sputtered and struggled and limped. They've had a lot of injuries in the same position over and over again in the edge rush department. So you're rolling out guys that would, last meaningful players like 5-6 years ago, which is a tough position against the best quarterback in football. I was disappointed for the Dolphins. As a fan, I don't have a dog in this fight. I just wanted a good game, and we didn't get that. The Chiefs kind of just played football. Like, they didn't really seem to play the conditions that much. Mahomes took some shots downfield. They ran the ball well, which they've been doing all year. The defense has been good, which they have been all year. They didn't seem to change their game plan all that much as a result of it being like colder than Neptune. The Dolphins looked so herky-jerky and out of sorts, and it may have been the weather. It's very possible, but I just didn't get a sense that they got a handle on the game at any point. Like, they couldn't get anything going. There was no breakaway moment apart from the Tyreek Hill pass, which wasn't even a very good throw. It just kind of weirdly happened. They weren't able to build off that. They weren't able to get, hey, we've got a good chunk here and we can get some plays going. And at least that rhythm that Mike McDaniel's had all season has just never really materialized. And the Chiefs kind of just played football and are better, and they won. And that was kind of the end of the story as far as I was concerned. A kind of unremarkable game on Saturday night, in my opinion. Just a better team beating a beat-down team who've been struggling down the stretch.
Yeah, so just fact-checking you a little bit, it was negative 218 degrees Celsius in Neptune, so not quite as cold in Kansas City as Neptune. Yeah. Listen, I think weather is probably one of the most overrated impacts to a football game. We all think, oh, it's cold or it's raining or it's snowing. Vegas windy is really good at this stuff. Windy is the one that matters. So windy is the one that matters. They've got a lot of studies to go back and say, look, if it's really, really windy, the ball will sail on you a little bit or it won't sail on you a little bit. And so you can get some crazy stuff when it's really windy. But cold, really players have the equipment and the technology now to kind of deal with it. And I was really surprised to see Miami impacted in the way I think they were by weather. One of my favorite parts of this game was in the pregame, guys come out, they're doing their warm up and, trying to be hoss.
Doing a t-shirt or whatever. Yeah.
Made a point of telling every reporter who would listen, I'm not wearing sleeves, not wearing sleeves, not wearing sleeves. And they're like, why aren't you wearing sleeves? Because I don't want people to think I'm soft. So he wore sleeves during the warm up, but he came out for the game with no sleeves on. And when he comes out for the game with no sleeves on, he's on the sideline for, 20 seconds. And in that 20 seconds, the cameras pan over to him, and he's like shivering. And he's like, you can read his lips. He goes, it's freaking cold. And then he barks at some staffer that he needs one of those parkas. He's like, give me a jacket. And then he stands over there like trying to get warm. And all I'm thinking is, well, this isn't good. Like, yes, of course it's cold. First of all, you should be wearing sleeves because I don't know if you ever heard, I'm sure you have, the phrase, it's better to be thought a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt.
Yes.
Well, I feel like, yes, people might think you're soft if you're wearing sleeves, but if you're not wearing sleeves and can't run, they're going to know you are.
Right.
And I think there was some of that. And the other part of this, and this is what nobody wanted to talk about going into that game. We talked about it a little bit on last week's show about how Miami, the injuries have finally just piled up and the team's just not been what they were. But once this team lost and lost and lost coming into the end of the season, lost in the last game against Buffalo, to lose the division after really being the cream of it all year long, they just kind of limped into the playoffs and never really had it. And certainly the injuries were a part of that. The defense injuries have been insane. They've lost everybody they had on the field who's supposed to rush the passer. And when you can't put pressure on Mahomes, I don't care what temperature it is, he's going to beat you. And this game wasn't close, and it could have been worse. I mean, in the first quarter,
Definitely.
Several balls were dropped that could have been big plays for Kansas City. I was like, well, maybe they're going to let them stay in this one. But Miami just never looked the part. I do think the weather was part of it. I don't think they were ready to play in it. As you know, I am not a fan of weather games. I think this is stupid. This is it's the premier sport in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly in this country, they print money, build domes. I don't care what the playing field is. You want to put grass in them, put grass in them, good turf, whatever. But the game should be played in conditions that you can play it in. And unlike the game in 1935, when you do the forward pass was illegal, you can't really play this game in negative 45 degree temperatures with the wind swirling and 4 feet of snow on the ground. I'm sorry. So put the buildings back in, or put the ball game back in domes.
You and I disagree on it, but it's a subject for another day. Miami certainly didn't seem to want to play in this game, regardless if it was wherever it was, inside, outside, on the moon. A couple of things that I just thought from the Miami standpoint were notable. One was, from a game planning standpoint, I was absolutely mystified by the absence of Devon Achane in this game. Like, I could not believe that he wasn't featured. It's freezing fucking cold. I think that's the official meteorological term. And you haven't got the strongest arm QB in the world. Like, throwing the ball hard in that kind of weather is not easy. Like, you ask Mahomes, you ask Josh Allen, Matt Stafford type guys, yeah, maybe they can do it, right? You ask Tua's not got the strongest arm. We know this. So to not have Devon Achane as a feature part of your offense when he's been fantastic all year when he's played, including in relief of Mostert. Mostert's coming off a couple-week injury. I was thinking this is going to be screens, checkdowns, outside runs, feature him. He can score from anywhere on the field. This is a game where, Tyreek Hill had the one big play and he had a couple other catches and he played fine. It wasn't like he completely crapped the bed. But feature a guy who you can give the ball to, not throw it to. You can give him the ball and he can score. And he just was a non-factor. And especially as the game got further and further out of hand, they kept using Mostert. Mostert's a fine player and has a fantastic year. Use your two backs. Make them the feature. I thought the same about the Steelers. We'll get to them in a bit. Like, feature the strength of this offense has been obviously the passing game and Tyreek and stuff, but be diverse. Like, Achane has shown you he can do stuff that is impressive and he can break a game open. You needed to break a game open and you just didn't use him. Found it baffling. Really question why that was not part of it. Obviously, I don't know why, but I just found that weird. The other thing I wanted to mention...
Part of it is he had 6 carries and managed 9 yards on them.
Yeah, but
it's one of those, and I get it.
A lot of his catches were at the end of the game when it was already a loss. Like, I didn't get it. I just didn't get the usage. It wasn't like he was coming in, playing a couple snaps, going back out. He just wasn't on the field. Like, Jeff Wilson Jr. was on the field often. Why? Like, I get he's good at pass pro. If you can have him in some snaps, but like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I understand. Because the other thing I thought this kind of revealed, and we were texting about it during the game, about the Tua convo, which will be extremely repetitive for the rest of this offseason, so we look forward to that. Just kind of showed that he's not like a creator type. Like, I call him like an on-the-spot quarterback. And a guy I compare him to, honestly, or made me think of, Brock Purdy. Right? There are similarities
that is not
there.
High praise from you.
And by the way, Brock Purdy's played great, but I mean, he can drive the Cadillac when it's working. Right? At this point, have not seen The game is completely out of control. You need to create something. In a weather game like this, you saw Mahomes do it over and over and over again. Just make some shit happen and win the game, get the first down, do whatever. Tua's not a creator. Purdy's had a couple of plays like that. Tua's had a couple of plays like that. Not his strength. And in this game, you just thought, can you take that next step and deliver something in an out of structure kind of way? And he didn't. And I just looked up a quick stat on this, which I thought was notable. First 21 starts of Tua's career, 2 game-winning drives. In the first 21 starts of Brock Purdy's career, which is, that's his career to date, he has 1. So some similarities in terms of like the bring the team backness, the creativity, the kind of out of structure stuff. Neither of them has shown like a consistent ability to do that. Now, Purdy is a bit younger. Tua is still fairly young. We'll see. But I think both of them have that impression. Obviously, similar offensive styles with the Shanahan tree.
Sure, and teams that have similarly struggled when they're not, they don't have a
dominating.
Right. Yeah. Both are teams who like to get out to a fast start and then ride the wave, kind of dictate to the other team. And when you're not dictating, it doesn't go as well. Certainly, let's not forget that the Dolphins have been much better when their 2 wide receivers are both fully functional, and they were both in this game,
no doubt,
but not in the same way. So
yeah,
I think
I just want
that. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say one more thing on Tua before we move on, which is just that I was looking at this stat earlier, right? And his first name is quite long, right? It's Tuani. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so apologies. Tuaniga Manuolipola is his full name, right? So Tua. His last name is Tagovailoa. His middle name is Donnie.
Not. It's not short for anything. Just Donnie.
No, Donny. It's just like, what? Where did this come from?
That is almost as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown, whose brother's equanimous is St. Brown. They have middle names like Imhotep. And
I think they've got a brother called Osiris as well. His dad's name is literally John Brown. Yeah, he added the saint to their name, which is just is poetic. It's just brilliant. I love that man. I've never met him. I love that man. You were going to say something meaningful before I got distracted.
No, I wasn't going to say anything meaningful. I was actually going to say I think we have probably belabored the Dolphins have imploded down the stretch, and the Chiefs have come into form when they needed to. And we'll move on to what my favorite game of the weekend was, that the scoreboard does not reflect the beatdown that the Cowboys took at home at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. I mean,
this is a smell and salts game if you're a Cowboys fan.
I mean, and listen, I'm a Steelers fan. We got our tushes handed to us, so I can relate. But wow.
Not like that.
You're talking about a head coach. We'll talk about the Eagles in a minute. We'll talk about the Steelers. But between the Cowboys, the Steelers, and the Eagles, you're talking about head coaches who had a lot of success, all of which after the games they played, the media went, well, maybe they're going to get fired. I mean, maybe that's how bad these games were. 3 of the 4 we have left to talk about today. The Cowboys were bad on offense. They were bad on defense. They didn't look like they wanted to be out there. They couldn't tackle. They were getting run over. They couldn't complete a pass until the game was well out of reach. They couldn't run. They couldn't throw. I'm not sure what the Cowboys could do through the first 40 minutes of this game until it was well out of hand.
No, it was just baffling. The funniest thing about this game to me was the big decision that was talked about a lot on the broadcast was Green Bay taking the ball first, right? Don't let Dallas get the lead. We just spoke about the Dolphins and Niners. Don't let Dallas get the lead. Go out there, be aggressive, take the kick. They took the kick, they scored. Great. That's what you would, perfect. You draw that out. But if you're the team that is receiving in the second half, right? The dream is forget everything else. You think, right, let's have the ball to end the half, pull a Belichick, have the ball to end the half, score. Get the ball again, score. And Dallas did that in this game. Unfortunately, they were down 27-0 at the time, so it didn't really have much of an impact, but I thought it was quite funny. I was like, oh, you did the Belichick thing, but you unfortunately forgot about the 2.5 quarters before that. I mean, the Dallas defense was really the story of this game to me. I know Dak threw the 2 picks, and that doesn't help, of course, but the Green Bay drive chart to start this game was touchdown, punt, touchdown, 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 touchdown. Dak could have played Patrick Mahomes or Joe Montana or Fran Tarkenton, whoever you want, or John Elway, if you give up 5 touchdowns in the first 6 possessions of any football game, you are not going to win. And I said it before about the Slowick game for Houston, like, wow, what a great thing for Slowick, hot name in the coaching ranks. If you're Dan Quinn, you're going, this was not, guys, not the time. I'm trying to get a job. Can you not do this? Green Bay averaged 7.7 yards per play. They were 6 of 10 on third down. They were 100% in the red zone. And Jordan Love had 5 incompletions in total in this game.
Yeah.
Brutalized is the only word. Go for it.
Hear another one that just blows my mind. Dallas averaged 6 yards per play and were 10 of 16 on third down and got
16 third downs. I mean, it was
they
the most
converted
empty
10
calorie.
of them.
Tim, it's the most empty calorie stat line I've probably ever seen from Dak Prescott. This is Blake Bortles-esque garbage time production. If I played for the first time ever, I entered a fantasy postseason thing where you pick up, one player from each team, right? And then they get eliminated. I picked Dak Prescott because I was like, hey, the Cowboys will play at least 2 games. But they didn't. But he put up some hellacious statistical numbers for me in the fantasy league that I played in, so that helped. But God Almighty, this was
wild.
They were down 32 points with 6 minutes
and
left.
Got boat raced.
Yeah,
they got boat raced, carrying 5 yards per rush on 25 carries. You look at this and you just go, what happened? And the answer is, the first half was just so abominably bad. To your point, yeah, they were up 32 points. 32 points. And they
6 minutes left, I think.
I do love how the booth could not decide whether or not they were going to give any credence to this comeback theory when, obviously the game had been over for 3 hours, but when Dallas scores, it goes touchdown,
maybe
punt, touchdown, Green Bay punts, Dallas has the ball with like 3 minutes left driving down the field. They're like, it's only a touchdown 2-point conversion, touchdown away, touchdown 2-point conversion, onside kick, touchdown 2-point conversion. But then, of course,
please don't switch the TV off. Is what they were trying to get across there, I think. But I think
it does tell you though what happens at the end of games when teams shut it down. I mean, Green Bay, once they were up 32, figured we'll just take the air out of the ball and let Dallas drive down the field, but made them take 5 minutes to do it. And then, of course, they went 3 and out on their last two drives, combining for a grand total of 4 yards. So, not running the same offense they've been running, scoring 5 touchdowns in 6 possessions. I've never understood why teams do that. I get it, but at the same time, control the ball, run the thing all the way down the field, score if you can, take all the time off the clock if you can't. But this super conservative, you've been playing great all day. You're up by 32. Just finish the game. But no one does.
I agree with that. But Jordan Love is the other obvious story from, from this game. We've given Dallas a lot of hell and they were horrific, so it's well deserved. But the Green Bay
Packers also played in this game.
Well ahead of schedule in the rebuild, the post Aaron Rodgers rebuild. Jordan Love, I texted you during the game. He has got some Aaron Rodgers like stylings to how he throws the ball, and I'm sure he's learned it from watching Rodgers in practice. Like the throw to Dontavian Wicks was like flat-footed, just zinged it, kind of that weird flicky throw style that Aaron Rodgers has, and just a dart into the end zone. It's an incredible throw. Since November began, Jordan Love's thrown 24 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I know the MVP is a nebulous thing or whatever, but if we're giving the award to guys who finished the season on fire, which is basically what it's become, no one's finished the season more on fire probably than Jordan Love. I mean, against some bad teams for sure, but put up some crazy stats. And the great thing for the Packers, not only have you done this without your former All-Pro, big money left tackle David Bakhtiari has played one game all year, so you haven't got him. They've got 5 picks in the top 100, and they've got 11 picks in the upcoming draft, is the projection with all the comps that they may or may not get. Obviously, that's TBD. So, future on paper, very bright for the Packers. I think this is kind of a house money situation.
This team's going to be around for a decade.
Well, they might well not be, but they certainly are in the position to be with a lot of draft capital, a quarterback, a ton of young talent on offense, all of whom seem to be good at some level, and a coach, Matt LaFleur, who's consistently put together a competitive group all of the years that he's been there in Green Bay and has made the playoffs more often than not. So kudos to him and kudos to them. I think it was a great display by much as the Dallas defense was shocking, the Packers offense made them look even more shocking by playing very, very well.
Yeah, but this is a team that is going to absolutely get annihilated next week as well.
You talked about it with the Texans, right? At the first thought, you can't do this again. This is no way. You've used every bullet in the chamber, surely.
It's fun. So. Enjoy this one. Listen, it reminds me of, and I'm going to get my history wrong here, so I don't know, whatever it is, what it is. But you and I, after watching Tennessee unbelievably drop a game at home in the playoffs to Cincinnati, were at a bar watching the Green Bay Packers unbelievably lose to the 49ers in a playoff game that the Packers had, or the Niners had no business being in.
They scored an offensive touchdown, did they, in that game? That was a special teams touchdown.
That's right, and they won the game anyway. I think it's probably time for the Niners to return that favor.
You would think so. But can I just say it would be really funny if the Packers beat them?
That's what I mean.
Just be really funny.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah. But Tim, speaking of things that are unlikely but happen, Detroit won a playoff game, Tim.
First time in 32 years.
You and I were going back and forth about this during the game because they brought up the stat that Detroit, prior to this, had won one playoff game in 65 years.
Yeah.
Which I did not know. And I did some research. I put out a tweet.
Their drought was 32 years, and it actually was 1 year less than their last drought. Yeah,
right. The Sputnik mission, the first manned mission to space, occurred in 1957. And
Sputnik
later that
wasn't
year...
a manned mission, it was a satellite.
Sorry. Sputnik was the... Yes, exactly. So it was the unmanned... the first mission to space was 1957. 2 months later, the Detroit Lions won 2 playoff games. The next time they won a playoff game was in 1991.
And they didn't again until now.
And they didn't again until this year. So this was the only interesting game. We spent ages talking about the crap games for some reason because we talk football, we enjoy it. Rams-Lions, a game very much of two halves, right? First half, no one could stop anyone scoring. And in the second half, no one could score, which was a weird one. A lot of comparisons were drawn between these two teams. Obviously, you've got the Stafford and Goff thing is the main one, right? You've had the downtrodden franchise of the Detroit Lions, but they've stayed in the same place forever, even though the team stinks. Then you've had the Rams that moved to LA, glitz and glam, new stadium, Super Bowl, superstars, woo, everyone's happy. And the lunch pail crew get the victory over the millionaire squad, if you want to think of it this way, although all the players are millionaires. I thought that Detroit was a worthy winner in this game. To be honest, I expected this to be a reasonably close game just because I felt like there would be some tightness from the Lions, which I think kind of bore out in the second half. They got a little bit jumpy. I just want to give credit to on the Rams side. First, I'll say my quick piece and then I'll throw it to you, Tim. 2 guys who played out of their collective gourd were Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. I watched all of these games this weekend. Some quarterbacks played great. You cannot tell me a quarterback played better than Stafford. I just will not hear it. Jordan Love was amazing. CJ Stroud was amazing. Matt Stafford in this game was out of his mind. Like, he made some absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing throws. Crouched, 2 third arm slot, round a defender, no-look screens, wedging it into windows he had no right to. And more often than not, was throwing it to Puka Nacua, everyone's new favorite wide receiver. I looked up his collegiate stats, Tim. Do you want some collegiate Puka stats?
I love it.
Because he's the new Cooper Kupp, right? That's what everyone's been saying.
He out-Coopered Cooper.
He's the new Kupp. Kupp is out. Puka's in. Cooper Kupp in college caught 428 passes for 6,400 yards and 73 touchdowns in 4 years at Eastern Washington. That's pretty damn good. So when he becomes a good NFL wide receiver, you say, hey, this guy's got a lot of production. Puka Nacua played 4 years of college football across the University of Washington and Brigham Young University, or BYU, as it's more commonly known. In total, 107 catches, 1,700 yards, and 14 touchdowns. My only takeaway was, where did this come from? I understand how you could scout Cooper Kupp. I completely get it. I have no clue how you scout Puka Nacua and then put him in this position. I mean, incredible. We haven't spoken about him as a Jonas Gray player because he quickly ascended beyond that level. But an incredible game from those two guys on the Rams
him,
side.
To be fair, we almost gave it to him in week 1, but we gave it to a
punt
returner and instead.
We did. Come on.
Here's what I'm going to tell you about this. And Puka Nacua is great, but there's a reason they drafted him in the 5th round.
Of course.
If you listen to the way they talked about him in the broadcast and talk about kind of discovering him, first of all, they gave credit to the fact that he was the 4th of 5 children, and so he was used to getting out of the bottom of the pile. I'm like, okay, lots of 4th of 5 children out there that are not NFL wide receivers, so I'm not sure I buy it.
Yeah.
But they said basically they brought him in, and no one could chuck him at the line, and no one could keep up with him on a route, so they just kept playing him, and it worked out. And, of course, It didn't hurt him that Kupp was out to start the season, so you get more snaps that way and an opportunity to show it. But, man, did he take advantage of the opportunity he was given. I think you look at these two teams. So the Rams threw for 90 yards more than Detroit. The Rams ran for 4 yards per carry. The Detroit ran for 3 yards per carry. More touchdown passes for Stafford versus Goff. Obviously, a couple of rushing touchdowns versus none for the Rams from the Detroit side. Detroit, fumbled the ball and recovered it. Another was there was also a fumble. Nacua fumbled. So the game was just if you're separating the teams by statistics, you'd almost give the edge to LA. You look at the other side. You got 3 sacks versus 2. You look at sort of tackles for loss, almost even. Total tackles, almost even. I mean, it was a really interesting kind of statistical matchup of two teams who you can't have built differently, right? Like at the end of the day, they're very, very differently compiled teams. LA built with a lot of late round draft picks. LA built sort of with some free agent acquisitions gone bad. I mean, this team was supposed to be bad this year. And it wasn't because they hit on several late round rookies this year that have really kind of turned it around for them. Another team is going to be great for decades, Luke.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is,
quarterback hurts that one. But yeah,
how did Detroit win this game? And I thought, the final scoreline was 24-23. I thought Detroit played better than that. And I think it comes down to just how much Stafford played outside his gourd. At the end of the day, you look down the line and you go, LA somehow had the better of this game statistically. When I watched it, I felt like Detroit was the better team by a fair margin. And the score was as close as it was because Matt Stafford can make up for a whole lot of things. He just didn't quite make up for enough. And I was worried. We talk about Detroit being the stalwart of the DFI that it is. When this team goes up, and their first 3 times out, they go touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. It's very DFI-like to follow that up with punt, field goal, punt, 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 end of game. And watching LA go, all right, so it's 7-0, 7-3, 14-3, 14-10, 21-10, 21-17, 21-20, 24-23. You're going, oh no, here it goes, and ultimately. LA wasn't able to get it done. I do have to ask, Luke, 4th and 14 from midfield with 4 minutes to go in the game, down by 1. I don't know that I'm punting there.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place to just say fuck it, and that's one of them.
And the reason I say that is because of the timeout situation, right? So you've already blown 2 your timeouts, and that's a whole different topic for a different
huge error. And we were messaging each other during the game, and he took one timeout early, and we said that's a mistake, and then they did it again. It was like that was a mistake, and so it was. We don't know they would have come back and won the game anyway, but like you burn timeouts for no reason early in the second half. You are asking for trouble every single time.
100%, and it's really interesting. You look at the percentage, the win probability chart in this game. When LA punts the ball back, it's only like a 70% chance or 65% chance that Detroit's going to win the game. I mean, there's a real opportunity for LA to make a comeback at that point, but it assumes that they're the average team in the average position, which includes a timeout factor. And it just, without Detroit, all Detroit did was convert a couple of first downs and the game was over. But that's where I'm coming from. If you know you're only down 1, so field position doesn't really matter. If you have 4th and 14 from your own 45 and you convert it, you keep the ball. If you don't convert it, you turn the ball over. There's only 4 minutes left in the game. If the other team gets a couple first downs, you're going to lose anyway. If the other team gets 1 first down and ends up kicking a field goal, all right, fine. You get the ball back down 4 instead of down 1, but you're still in it. If they score
it's almost like the logic of like, let them, when teams like let them score a touchdown at the end of the game so we get the ball back, right? It's almost the same principle. Yeah, I agree with that.
So my view is at 4th and 14, an aggressive coach like Sean McVay who plays the numbers, especially with 1 timeout left and the 2-minute warning, the only things he had to stop the clock, I've got to play ball control there. I've got my quarterback is playing outside his mind. I've got a wide receiver who you can't cover. Maybe you get a penalty, maybe you get a catch, and maybe it doesn't work. But LA, I think victories don't come in the mail. They don't give you a trophy for trying. Like, you got to go out there and give it everything you got. And I don't know why they chose in this particular instance to play conservative, but they were not able to get the stop when they needed it, and Detroit ran the clock out. Listen, unless you're a fan of one of the other 7 teams that still find themselves in this thing, everybody on planet Earth is rooting for the Detroit Lions right now.
Correct.
I mean, full stop. And if you listen to our show, a DFI Super Bowl would be incredible. But no one cares about the fact that the Cowboys are out or the Eagles are out, unless you're a fan of those teams. No one cares about the Steelers being out. No one cares if the Chiefs win another one. No one. I mean, if Detroit Cleveland would have been the dream.
Oh, but poetry in motion.
Yeah, but if you can get Detroit in the Super Bowl, and listen, I think you can. I mean, not to mention they were the 2 seed, so like the 1
seed, pretty damn good.
Or not the 1 seed's not out, obviously.
And also they weren't the 2 seed, right? Because they got jobbed on the 2-point conversion by
Dallas. No. I consider them the 2 seed. Yes, they got jobbed, but that's not.
the moral 2 seed. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they're a very
good
team.
The other 2 seeds out, so.
And also, they're a good team.
Like you said, beat the 49ers.
Well, and listen, as we've just established, the Packers are going to beat the 49ers, so they're going to only beat the Packers. Perfect. But yeah, I think we've said enough about that game, Tim. One last thing I will say, we're coming up on draft season. We're coming up on, everyone watches a few college guys and they think, if you are looking at a wide receiver and then they remind you in any way of either of the 2-star receivers in this game, Puka Nacua or Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they're available in the mid-rounds, draft them as soon as you can. Run the card up, do whatever you need to do, get the C line to hit the ball, whatever they do in the late rounds, the crazy draft pick things that they do. But yes, they always go to like the zoo, or they go to, have you, because you don't watch day 3 of the draft, right? So I do every single year. Things, yeah. And as the draft gets longer and longer, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers would pick 165, like no one cares. Like most people at home don't know who this guy is. And the picks are just rolling along, and they start. Really care. Yeah. They start talking about generalities, and where is this team going to go, and they revert back to the first round. So they're filling time, and the third day of the draft goes on for like 8 hours. As they're picking later on in the day, a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, they started to introduce like fun things as the draft became something that more people watch. So they'll have like, a military base will announce the pick for X team, right? Or they'll have a cheerleader come out and do it and do a cheer and say, this is the whatever. But they started to do these random things like go to the zoo and have like, there was one where they had like a chimpanzee pick a card. It's great TV. It's absolutely mental. It's like what TV would have been like in like when they ran out of things to show in like the 50s. But
speaking of things that were absolutely mental, the Steelers and the Bills were moved from Sunday to Monday at 4:30. Thank goodness it was a holiday for most folks, so you got to tune into that one. But 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on a Monday. Notwithstanding my earlier commentary about every football game should be played inside, I will tell you I almost wish they'd played this one in the blizzard. I think if you couldn't see and the wind was 60 miles an hour, you might have leveled the playing field a little bit. The Steelers fell victim to the same thing a lot of teams do when you're playing a backup and he slightly exceeds your expectations, and all of a sudden Steelers fans thought maybe Mason Rudolph was a good quarterback. I'd like to remind those same Steeler fans that despite the fact that we didn't have an offense, we were 7-4 with Kenny Pickett playing quarterback, and we spent a first-round pick on him, and he has beaten both the other guys in practice all year long. That's why he was the starter. Maybe we should have played him. Mason looked lost for much of the first half until we had a blocked field goal. The Steelers did absolutely nothing. The Bills, on the other hand, came out and went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. What are we doing? The Steelers defense couldn't stop them. The Steelers are 1-11 now without TJ Watt in the last 12 opportunities. It is,
which is an incredible statistic for a defensive end. Like that gets to a point that's getting like ridiculous.
Well,
like teams have better records with backup quarterbacks.
Over that same period of time, we're over 500 as a team, right? So with him on the field, we're almost the opposite. It is
right.
absolutely wild to see how you kind of get there. And so, listen, you knew it was going to be a challenge without him on the field. You and I talking about it ahead of the game said, what are the opportunities the Steelers win? Well, Josh Allen gets bored, and instead of running for a 53-yard touchdown, which he's had every opportunity to do several times this year, he throws the ball to a triple covered receiver, and it ends up being an arm punt for a pick in the end zone. He chose not to do that in this game. Took incredibly good care of the ball. The Steelers actually had the turnover, so 2 turnovers from the Steelers, never going to get done when you're the underdog, and rightfully so. Buffalo played about as clean a game as you could for the first 2 quarters, and then again in the fourth quarter after letting the Steelers make a game of it. I also think the Steelers are really good at that. We'll be down 21 and we'll score 17. But to score 17, you got to score 14, so you really had a chance to tie the game, but instead you kick that field goal. And when you do, it all tends to come crashing down, and it did. Ended up 31-17 in a game that at times felt closer and at times felt perhaps farther away. There were a couple of absolutely abhorrent tackling performances by several teams this weekend. The Cowboys couldn't tackle. We haven't got to the Eagles yet. They couldn't tackle either. But the Steelers could not figure out how to bring a guy down. Khalil Shakir, who is not exactly a Pro Bowler, made Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is look absolutely silly. Lots of these plays out there. So at the end of the day, Steelers got boat raced in a playoff game, which is becoming a tradition for the Mike Tomlin-led Steelers. We underperform all year, overperform all year, sneak our way into the postseason, and then get shellacked by a good football team. So that's my very comprehensive review of this one, Luke. I can't bear to think about it anymore, so I'll let you add anything you feel like is necessary.
Yeah, honestly, if we took the packaging off, right, and we just said there's 2 random football teams, and this is, one was the the low seed coming in, and one was the highest seed, and the highest seed's at home, and the underdog turns the ball over twice, and the favorite doesn't. 99 times out of 100, there's one result, and we would say they're going to lose. I mean, the Steelers, as you say, made a game of it. Mike Tomlin conjuring up his weird secret magic that he often does, right, with the block field goal. Like when the Steelers really need something, it just somehow happens. So the special teams getting a block was big. Obviously, Steelers got back in the game. Like I said earlier, with the Dolphins, I found the running back usage confusing in this game. I watched a few Steelers games this year and messaged you about it at the time and said, I don't understand how these backs are being used. And I felt like you'd gone into a good mode the last few weeks with Rudolph in terms of Najee was the focal point. Warren is this, he is the complementary back, right? That's what he's good at. And I felt like in this game, you kind of got into bad habits. A lot of inside runs on first down. I said to you, the Bills lost yet another linebacker, and then they lost yet another linebacker after that. And you weren't throwing the ball to Jaylen Warren in the flat or on checkdowns or on little angle routes. I would have been spamming running back pass plays. You got back at quarterback in, it's windy. These guys are back at AJ Klein's out there playing every snap. Like, he's not the best athlete even when he was younger. Get Jaylen Warren the ball in space, make them come and tackle you. And you could have done it with Najee too, right? Big bruising back, got elusive ability. I found the running back usage confusing in terms of strategically how you would approach this game if I was calling the plays, which obviously I'm far from doing. That was my main kind of takeaway on the Steelers front, was tactically. The Bills, they were fine. I didn't think the Bills were particularly great in this game for a lot of it. They've limped through a lot of games at the end of the season and somehow won. I didn't come away from this game going, well, the Bills are going to, destroy the Chiefs on the weekend. They were fine. And they got one crazy explosive play from Josh Allen, and then the kind of weird fluky-ish kind of touchdown at the end with Shakir, but like it wasn't an overwhelming performance from them, I didn't think personally. If the Steelers didn't turn the ball over twice, very different game, but they did. So that was kind of the be-all, end-all. We can end your pain, Tim, and move on to the Eagles game for a good laugh if you want to. If you want to stop talking about the Steelers.
And more about the Bills in there in a little preview in a moment, because I do think their matchup with Kansas City is interesting. Everybody wants to talk about how this one's in Buffalo, as if Buffalo and Kansas City are that different of a place to play. But
tropical.
Yeah, listen, Philly. My God.
I mean, so we honestly, Tim, can I just say one quick thing and then I'll let you go? I watched Cowboys game. We both watched Cowboys game, and I thought this is so embarrassing. Like, this is so embarrassing if you're a Cowboys fan. Like, I don't hate the Cowboys in the way a lot of other people hate the Cowboys. I like Dak. You know, it's fun to hate on the team that everyone, like the Lakers or the Warriors recently, I guess, right, or the Patriots, or the big bads. The Cowboys haven't been any good for such a long time. I don't really care. Like, in my football watching life, they've never played a Super Bowl, never won a Super Bowl. I don't care about the Cowboys losing. It was horrific to watch. But I could watch that game and go, I can see how this got out of hand. You had the 2 picks from Dak, including the pick 6, and you were like, this just blew the game completely apart, right? I think the Eagles game against the Buccaneers has a case to be as or more embarrassing in the manner of how it went. I don't know what you would make of that statement, but this was shocking football from the Eagles from minute 1 to minute 60.
Listen, we talked about it in, I think, our first episode this regular season. It was the art of the blowout. And we were talking about how blowouts occur. And there's the series of unfortunate events. There's the one team just doesn't show up. There's the bad weather game. We talked about all these different, and one team's just better than the other. And the real true blowouts are the ones where you kind of have all of that in one. The Cowboys, it was kind of there was a series of unfortunate events, and you're looking around going, how'd the score get here again? In this game, it was a little bit of everything. I mean, at halftime, you and I were texting, and I said, I think if the Eagles had gotten absolutely just run out of the building here, like it looked like they were about to, I think Nick Sirianni could have gotten fired, but it looks like they've decided to show up after all. And then they didn't. No. The play that stuck out to me in this game, it is second down from the 4-yard line, and they're coming out of their own end zone. And I thought there was a holding penalty in the end zone that should have been a safety. But instead, they complete a pass out to about the 11-yard line. And as a fan of defensive football, I always love a good safety. I thought,
love a safety.
We're not going to get one after all. And then the very next play, to get sacked in your own end zone from the 11-yard line, when you had first of all, you have to drop back 12 yards to make that happen. There's no reason to drop back 12 yards ever. There's certainly no reason to drop back 12 yards when you're on your 11. And then to step into the end zone and pump fake. I mean, it was just Jalen Hurts was absolutely losing his mind.
Yeah, just that entire like he had play. Just gone unconscious or something. Like, it's just, what are you doing? Like, do anything apart from what you're doing is fine.
Well, you know how much we love a drive chart, right?
Love
Here's
it.
the second half drive chart for the Eagles: punt, safety, downs, end of game. Like.
That's so shit.
What? And if you want to go their whole game, it was punt, field goal, touchdown. So they had a field goal, touchdown, back-to-back drives. You thought, okay, well, they've got it sorted.
Well,
no, they don't.
And the touchdown was followed up by the Bucs make a terrible error, and you think, oh no, you jump off sides on the PAT. It's the 1-yard line. They're going to run the tush push, and it's going to be a 2-point. First of all, there was no reason to go for 2 points in that situation. There was no reason to do it.
Yep.
But fine, I'll be aggressive. I have no problem with that. You've got the cinch play, and the Buccaneers stopped the tush push on the 2-point conversion. Yeah, there was some, potential penalty could have been called on grabbing Jalen Hurts by the head, but they didn't call it. The play was stopped, and I was like, wow, if you can't run the tush push, like it's bad times in Philly.
Well, you just think about the end of the half, right? It's 3rd and 8 on your own 34-yard line, and they didn't even try, like with 20 seconds left in the game. Like they had a minute and a half. They got the ball at the 9, and they kind of half-hearted a drive out to the 30, and then just
Yeah.
Nah, never mind. We've got the ball coming back after the half. And then in my favorite drive of my favorite first drive of the half or game all year long, Philly goes 3 plays for negative 10 yards, including no penalties. Right. So not a holding call. Sometimes you get that, right? 3 incompletions and a hold. So you're minus 10.
Right.
No.
Minus 10.
No penalties. This was DeAndre Swift lost a yard, incomplete pass deep left, 9-yard sack to the 15-yard line. So you talk about coming out of the half ready to reset the tone of the game. Well, I guess not. But the last thing I'll say about this game, because eventually we should talk a little bit about what's to come, is if you're the Eagles – and you come out of the half and you lay that egg, and the Bucs come out in the next drive and lay their own egg, 4 plays, 4 yards, punt. And then the Bucs next drive, 5 plays, 19 yards, punt. Like the Bucs were not putting this team away. It was a 7-point game when Jalen Hurts takes the ball from his own 11-yard line back into the end zone.
Yeah.
And that's where this game got out of hand. The safety followed by the next 7 points, and all of a sudden it's 25-9. Not a lot of time to go. The Eagles end up having to go for it on 4th down a couple of times, and it doesn't work out for them, and the final score is 32-9. But they gave you every opportunity to get back in this game. You are the better team by far. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won last week to qualify for the playoffs. Do you remember who they beat?
They beat the Panthers, Tim, 9-0.
Do you remember how much they? 9-0. They scored 0 touchdowns against the Panthers. Do you know how many touchdowns they scored today?
More than 0.
More than 0 is the right number. I mean, it is shocking to me that the Eagles have imploded. If you listen to, I love trying to read the context of commentators, particularly like the guys on, all these talk shows, because every sports channel now has their Sports Center style or Get Up style or whatever their, best damn sports show period style or whatever it is. And they talk and they just talk for hours. But there's stuff that you can see they're not allowed to talk about. Like their sources said, you can't use
Don't
this
say
or
this.
whatever.
Yeah.
But they know, and they allude to it. So everybody's been talking about all of these things that have gone wrong in Philly this year, and it's, who's really in charge, and does Nick Sirianni get to do what he wants to do, and is Lurie messing around, or is it the GM, or is it these other guys who are around and causing all the. But the tumult in that locker room has to just be off the charts. The talent that this team has and the draft picks that they were able to add in this offseason, and then to come out, 11-1 and playing poorly in some of those games. The only game they lost the first half of the season was to the Jets. And, you're allowed a snoozer every now and again, and then to lose 5 of your last 6 to end the regular season, and you really should have lost all 6 of them, and then to lose your first playoff game to a terrible Buccaneers team that only was in the playoffs because someone had to win their division.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you go move on for something like that.
On the plus side, I'm sure all Philly sports commentators will agree with me in this saying, wasn't it great seeing Marcus Mariota get some snaps in the playoffs? Wasn't that just great? Warmed the heart. Yeah, listen, you nailed it on the Eagles. I want to just give a quick bit of credit to the Buccaneers before we move on and pivot this towards the games coming up. The Buccaneers played pretty well. They dropped a ton of passes and they still won this game. It was really kind of amazing. The Bucs played really well, and the thing that they also succeeded on so much was these kind of crossing routes, and what they really took advantage of was a big weakness on the Eagles, which is a lack of speed in the second and third levels. And I just thought it's really funny how times change. A couple of years ago, everyone was all over the Eagles. Well, they let all their linebackers go in free agency every year, but that's because it's not a premium position. That's what everyone was saying, right? Like, they're investing where it matters. Off-ball linebackers aren't important anymore, so they're ahead of the curve. And I thought, isn't that funny how things change so quickly in the NFL? So I looked at their linebacking group, and I think this tells a tale, right? 2021, their starting linebackers were Alex Singleton, who they let go, who has been brilliant in Denver, and TJ Edwards, who's now with the Bears. He was back in 2022. They had TJ Edwards, Kazir White, who played well, has gone to Arizona, has played well, and they drafted Nakobe Dean later, whose draft stock plummeted because of his injury. Now he was injured again this year, but maybe you factor that in and you make sure you have talent. Here's the 3 linebackers for the Eagles: Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow, and Shaq Leonard on the roster. That's what we're looking at the linebacker position. If any of those guys can run a 4.8,
and not the Shaq Leonard that
no. I mean, he was a great player.
Shaq Leonard.
No, he was a great player. He's a multi-time All-Pro, but he's past his best. The defensive backfield has gotten slow in a hurry. My beloved Mayor of Murfreesboro, Kevin Byard, has looked a shell of the man that he was in Tennessee. And it made me think, as we pivot maybe ahead to these other games in a second, it's weird that the linebackers kind of had to feel a bit of a renaissance. Like the off-ball linebacker is actually, people are realizing it's important because teams attack it all the time, especially in that Shanahan offense, right? Stretch plays and boots and crossing routes, and they put a lot of stress. Look at the 2 best teams in football this year. Pretty good linebackers. San Francisco's got Fred Warner, who is the best linebacker in football, and they've got Dre Greenlaw, who is excellent. The Ravens have got Roquan Smith, who is excellent, and Patrick Queen, who has come on like gangbusters. The Buccaneers have obviously got Levante David, who had his standard very good game, very good year all over again. Devin White, great athlete, so can cover some of those spaces. He's been pretty down the last couple of years, but has that talent. Texans, Christian Harris was phenomenal. The Bills have prioritized his position. They let Tremaine Edmonds go, but Matt Milano was supposed to be the guy. He obviously is brilliant, but got injured. Terrell Bernard had a great year. The Chiefs have got Nick Bolton. The Lions have got Anzalone. And the Packers have got Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell. So like all of the teams that are left have actually got someone who's good at that position, and the Eagles just don't. And Baker and the Bucks went after it over and over and over and over again, and they just could not deal with it. And then on top of that, the tackling in this game, I struggle to think of a worse tackling display by any team that I've ever seen in any game. Like, obviously, I can't remember all the games I've watched, but in a playoff game, not missing tackles, like just swiping at guys. The Trey Palmer touchdown, I mean, I don't know what James Bradbury is doing. So swiping. Byard looks like he's dragging an anchor. No one's pursuing. It was just a criminal lack of effort on their front. And the funniest thing to me was you get Mike Evans breaks a tackle, or, Rashad White, or, these guys are big, Chris Godwin, big, strong dudes. I think it's Devin Tompkins, is it? The wide receiver punt returner for the Bucks. He is 5'8", 155 pounds, which is smaller, so he's shorter and lighter than I am. And he was breaking, he broke like 3 tackles on one play against the defense, not special teams, against the defense. I can't think of anything worse from a tackling standpoint than what we saw in that game. I mean, it's been played to death. So I'll shut up about the Eagles. I wanted to ask you one quiz question before we move on to the rest of these games.
Sure.
Baker Mayfield, 5th number 1 pick to win playoff games with 2 franchises. Can you name the other 4?
5th number 1 pick to win playoff games with 2 franchises. Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning.
Number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
One of them you should definitely get.
What is? Oh my God. I'm gonna have to turn in my NFL fan card. No, I know one, and his name is escaping me, and it's going to embarrass me if I don't come up with it. So I'm going to Google instead of ask you.
Sure. Well, one of them played this weekend, so you should get that one.
Oh, Joe Flacco wasn't number 1 pick. Who?
Jared Goff.
Oh, duh. Yeah, no, that was.
And there are 2 others. One is recent, one is not so recent.
So was Joe Montana a number 1 overall pick?
He was not.
No, okay.
One was the number 1 overall pick in, I think it was 2005. It was the Aaron Rodgers year. Do you know who the first pick was in that draft?
Alex Smith.
Alex Smith is on this list, 49ers and Chiefs. The other one, Tim.
I forgot about the Chiefs.
Yeah,
okay.
The other one,
that's right.
We have to go back in the annals to the 1980s, Tim, the late 1980s. First overall pick quarterback who won games for the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs and the New York Jets. So doing the Downtrodden Franchise Index a service. And his name is?
I have absolutely no idea.
Vinny Testaverde, Tim, is the other one we were looking for.
First of all,
how about old Vinny?
Testaverde was a number 1 draft pick. I'd have told you a liar.
And do you know which team picked him?
I mean, not the Browns or the Jets, obviously.
No, it was Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tim. Good old Vinny was playing well into the 2000s, played forever. But yeah, so Baker joining that illustrious group. Anyway, that's enough quizzes. We're going to rocket through these divisional round games. I'll give you my 2 cents on each one right now, and you can hit on whichever one you want. Texans, Ravens, I'm picking the Ravens. Packers, Niners, I'm picking the Niners. Bucks, Lions, I'm picking the Lions. And I think the Chiefs will beat the Bills. That's my 2 cents on these games. Hit me with whatever you think.
So to recap yours, you're going chalk. The only underdog you're taking there is the Chiefs and
the reigning Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, sort of a stretch. Here's what I'm going to say. If the Bills were going to play a down postseason game, I think it would have been the one they just played. If the Bills lose that game, it'll be because Mahomes does Mahomesy things. And I just think if there was ever a time for Allen to be Allen, they finally have a running game going there. The Chiefs have not been as great on defense, have not been as great against the run. I think the Bills will be able to control the ball a little bit unless Allen throws for some interceptions.
It's a good defense.
Less than 2 interceptions, I think you'll see the Bills win that game. So I'm actually taking the favorite there. I'm going to go reverse here. Bucks, Lions. I want the Lions to win that game. I expect the Lions to win that game. They're a much better football team. So probably the Bucks, but I'm going to pick the Lions. You can't take Ravens and Niners like you did. That's the easy way out. They're both favored by more than a touchdown. I got to pick one of them to go down in fumes. I think it's going to be the Ravens. I think CJ Stroud. I picked CJ Stroud to throw for more touchdowns or more picks than touchdowns. So I'm going against my what happens to rookie quarterbacks. But I hate the Baltimore Ravens. There was one of my favorite football games I've ever been to, bar none, was watching the Ravens implode to your Tennessee Titans. The last time Lamar won MVP and was
1 seed at home, heavily favored against the AFC South.
Won't have played football in almost 3 weeks. It's a long time to be off. I think it's going to be a real challenge for the Ravens.
Yeah, I would love to pick the Texans or the Packers, but I think to your point, they've both just put up such unbelievable performances in the first round of the playoffs. That's my worry. If one of them had squeaked it, like you think about that Ravens-Titans game, right, where the Titans squeaked it over the Patriots, right? It ended up being a win, but it wasn't by a huge margin, right? It wasn't like touchdown.
No.
Then they beat the Ravens. The Texans and the Packers just put up 40 plus in spectacular fashion. I just have a hard time seeing them beating 2 teams who are much better than them. Like the Ravens and the Niners are much better than the Texans and the Packers. I just struggle to see them replicating that. There's no more art to it than that. Sometimes the better team just wins the football game, and the 1 seeds tend to be the better football teams, and they are this time, and I think they're both going to win.
Maybe. What I'll say is...
I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope
the Ravens,
Texans,
if the Ravens
Packers,
are going to lose,
Lions,
it's
Chiefs.
because the Texans jump out early and hold on late. It's not going to be... Listen, take the under in that game if you believe in the Texans. It's not going to be 58 to 32. It's going to be 20-17 or something like that, where Houston scores a couple early, and then it's a defensive struggle from there in as Lamar struggles to kind of get it going and get.
Can you imagine if Houston shreds the Browns defense and then the next week shreds the Ravens defense? Wouldn't that just be the most incredible thing? I don't think it's going to happen, to your point, but it would be pretty remarkable.
Well,
if they were to do it back-to-back weeks.
The MVP is supposed to be based solely on the regular season.
The votes are already in, Tim.
Yeah, but I bet you could change them. If CJ Stroud shreds, if CJ Stroud shreds both the Browns and the Ravens in back-to-back weeks to go to the AFC Championship game, there are going to be some writers calling and going, "Hey, I need my ballot back." It'll be real interesting to see how that turns out. But no, the Niners are going to absolutely destroy the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay has had a season up and downs. Their playoffs are going to be no different. They already had their up. Their down is coming in a hard way. So I've got a gamble that says CJ Stroud's not going to play as well as he did, but I'm still taking the Texans over the Ravens, the Niners over the Packers. I've got the Lions, and I have got the other game is the
Chiefs and the Bills, Tim.
Chiefs. Yeah, that's right. I've got the Bills. So give me the Bills over the Chiefs. Give me the Lions, and then we already talked about the other two. So that's where I'm at this week. I think if you're trying to find an appointment, right, you gotta watch one of these games. Which one are you thinking is going to be primetime TV, Luke?
I mean, it has to be Chiefs Bills, right? Like, I know that's the really obvious thing to say. It has to be Chiefs Bills. Like, this has been it's always great when teams play each other in the playoffs all the time. I always love those games. Like, I remember obviously the Colts Pats games.
Yeah.
All the time, and you're like,
it's like Steelers.
It's like a rivalry on top of the rivalry. Like, it brings it to these teams have no reason to dislike each other at all. There's nothing common between these two teams whatsoever. But I love that we've had this springing up of
Only
it feels very old fashioned, right? Because teams,
right.
teams used to play in the playoffs every year because there was no free agency, right? So the Steelers were in the playoffs every single year, or the Packers, or the whoever. So I love it when you get these playoff rivalries. So that would be the one. If I had to watch one, I would take, again, the very obvious choice. I'm assuming you're going to tell me Texans Ravens.
For my money, give me Lions Bucks. That's going to be. Watch the scoreboard in that one. The over under on that's 48.5. I'm on the over by a long way.
Wow.
This could be the Lions might score 50
Packers, Cardinals,
and the Bucks might score 35. Yeah, I mean,
it's like 56-48 or whatever that game was.
It could come to 100 total. I mean, I think you're going to see an offensive
college
explosion.
Football. All right. Well, if you do, you're going to hear about it here on the Half Yard Line next week. We hope you will join us. Thank you for being with us here on episode 100
episodes, Luke. 100 in the bag.
We are keeping it a buck, and we'll continue to roll on.
Might be our longest episode
next week.
Too. Sorry about that.
Could be. We'll be back with 101 next week to recap the divisional round, talk about the scuttlebutt around the NFL, and look ahead to the conference championships. Follow us in the meantime at Half Yard Line Pod on all the socials. You can email us halfyardlinepod@gmail.com. We are winding down towards the finale of the Half Yard Line after the Super Bowl, so encourage you to reach out, get in touch ASAP, because I'm not going to keep checking them much long after that. But until next week, we bid you adieu.
Bye-bye.
Go Lions!